Is back into it in Chester. Here's El Senior. Yes! Yes!
The center back, Jacob Glesnes,
He's going for it.
Yes! Oh my goal! What a goal!
And that will do it! One of the best comebacks in recent years. 3 unanswered by the Union. And they go into the Gold Cup break, winning it 3-2.
Hello and welcome to the Free Kick Podcast. My name is Todd. And yeah, hopefully you guys are having an outstanding weekend after that 2-0 Philadelphia Union victory against New York City FC in Yankee Stadium. The first time ever the Union have went into Yankee Stadium and gotten a victory. And I think that just sets up a outstanding weekend for all of us, especially with this great weather. I'm sure you guys are having similar weather like I am down here in Maryland, up in Philadelphia. I'm sure you guys are having similar weather. That's what I'm trying to get out. But, man, it's just, so excited. And I feel a lot better than I did recording the podcast last week when it was daylight savings. So I was like, oh, it's daylight savings. Like, my body was not used to it. And even, like, during last week, I don't know how you guys felt, but, like, it took me a while to get used to losing an hour of sleep. And, yeah, now I feel good. And hopefully it's easier for you guys. Before we talk about this game and everything, that I thought about giving myself blunder of the week, but I'm not going to do that just because I told you guys last week that I would have Glenn Crooks on the podcast, New York City's radio play-by-play voice, and that obviously didn't happen because I didn't release a podcast. And I said it before where, every time that I try to announce a guest on the podcast or try to hint at a guest coming on the podcast, something always comes up and it winds up not happening. And so I really need to stop trying to tease guests for you guys. It's like when I have the guest on, then they'll be on. It's like when I plan something and I tell you guys something's planned, then it's like, oh, something comes up last minute. So yeah, that's on me for spoiling who I was going to have on podcast. It obviously did not happen. So I don't know. I got to get out of the habit of telling you guys what guests are coming on the podcast before they come on to the podcast. But yeah, just what a great game for the Union. What a great week of MLS games we've had so far. And we saw Charlotte last night pick up their first win over New England. Great game from Charlotte. Ben Bender, a former University of Maryland Terrapin, former Union Academy player, scoring the third goal for Charlotte. Love to see former Union players, former Maryland Terrapins, people from Maryland doing well in MLS, and even if they're not getting a chance in MLS, just doing well in soccer in general. So congratulations to all the Charlotte fans for getting their first victory, and now us Union fans in 2 weeks, I believe we play Charlotte. Now we don't have to worry about them getting the first win ever against us. So at least if something does happen against Charlotte where if somehow we don't get all 3 points, we can't say, well, we were the first team to lose to Charlotte because New England, the reigning Supporters' Shield winners, looked terrible against Charlotte. And yeah, well-deserved 3 points. And again, I know I talked to you guys last week. It was just asking, do you guys think that it's easier to win on the road this season? And look, we saw more road wins this weekend. We saw, obviously, the Union go ahead and get a victory. We saw Orlando, after they lost to Cincinnati last week, they go into L.A. and beat the Galaxy 1-0. Montreal were up 3-1 against Atlanta in Mercedes-Benz Stadium. Atlanta United scored 2 goals in like the last 6-8 minutes of the game to tie that game up 3-3. So it was a really, really good result. We saw Colorado earn a point on the road against Houston. And we have 3 more games today. New York Red Bulls versus Columbus, Austin versus Seattle Sounders, and then LAFC versus Vancouver. So we'll see. We'll definitely see what happens in MLS play today. Will there be more road results for the away teams? I don't know. I still do think it's way too early to try to judge and try to figure out, is it easier to get wins on the road or not? I just think probably part of it is because MLS has started so early this season, so teams aren't in full form. They're still getting used to the way that they want to play, and some teams are definitely more ahead of other teams in MLS, where in terms of fitness, in being more organized, being used to playing with each other. So it is something to keep an eye on. I think one thing that would be interesting, though, is to look at the first 4 weeks, the last couple of years of MLS compared to the first 4 weeks of MLS this year, and see how many road teams won in years prior in the first 4 weeks compared to what they've won this year. So that's something, if you guys are interested in looking up, I think we could definitely look up those numbers and compare those numbers. But yeah, I have a lot to talk about today for the podcast. A lot of news. We finally have news, yes. Talk about that New York City game. I'll talk about the 2 goals the Union scored. Give my 3 players of the game, which I totally forgot to do last week, I believe. And then we'll go ahead and do Blunder of the Week. So without further ado, let's get into the news. Yeah, so starting off, this was big from The Athletic this past week, where The Athletic's reporting that the MLS TV rights deal isn't likely to be a game changer as they were hoping for. The Athletic said, according to sources, NBC, CBS, and Fox have not shown much, if any, interest in the league's rights. Turner held talks with MLS in early 2022 to potentially attain the rights. Turner remains interested in MLS as both a linear and digital property, but that the network's discussions with the league have effectively been put on pause as Warner Media works through the final stages of its merger with Discovery. The main linear broadcasters at the table are currently MLS partners, ESPN and Univision, but neither of them are offering a blockbuster deal, according to The Athletic. Now, yeah, I summarized the whole article and everything. Very good article that, like I said, that The Athletic published this past week. If you don't have The Athletic, they do provide good coverage for MLS. Enjoy reading their MLS coverage. I think they're doing a deal right now for like $1 for the next couple months. So not a plug, I wish. But definitely an interesting article to read by The Athletic. I believe Sam wrote the article, so definitely give that a read if you guys have The Athletic. If not, sign up for free. Like they do write good pieces on MLS. But yeah, just looking at it, they looked at the TV rights deals for the NFL, NBA, MLB, and everything. So I'll go ahead and tell you guys these numbers right now. These are the annual deals that each of these leagues get. So the NFL are getting $10 billion a year. They're number one. Nobody's close to the NFL. We all know how huge NFL is in America. And we're starting to see, more and more people in Europe come on board the NFL train. We saw this past week just all the NFL news, and it's not even NFL season. It's the off season. We got so much NFL news. So I feel like NFL's now gone from being this huge deal during the season to there is no off season ever for NFL. You're always getting news, and they get $10 billion a year from their TV rights. Next is the NBA with $2.6 billion a year, followed by Major League Baseball with $1.75 billion a year. Next after that is the NHL. They get $625 million. And so those 4 sports are what people say are the 4 big sports in America right now. But then The Athletic gave information on the rights deals for NASCAR, for PGA, the college football playoffs, and NASCAR. I was so surprised by this. NASCAR gets yearly $820 million. $820 million. That's so much more than the NHL. And NASCAR is by far not a premier sport in America. And to see they get $820 million a year, like that blew my mind. NASCAR? Like, are you serious? Like, NASCAR is definitely not as big as it once was, and they're still getting that amount of money, $820 million. Insane. Followed by the PGA Tour. They get $700 million. Yeah, golf's huge, and we know there's a lot of money in golf, and $700 million, a ton of money right there. Followed by the college football playoffs, $470 million. Followed by NBC's deal with the Premier League for $450 million. After that, La Liga, who ESPN have the rights to, is $175 million. Followed by MLS, his current deal with $90 million a year. Followed by Serie A, who CBS has the rights to that for $66.67 million. And then followed by the Bundesliga, who ESPN has the rights to that deal for $30 million. I mean, it's insane. Like, honestly, seeing that NASCAR, that's my whole takeaway. Maybe it's yours too. $820 million. I don't know. I can't get past that number. I did not think it was that high. And I remember there was rumors going around that MLS wanted a deal worth $300 million a year. So that still wouldn't be as expensive as the Premier League, wouldn't be as expensive as the college football playoffs. But to go from 90 million to 300 million, that's a huge change. And the Athletic posted the TV ratings, the annual TV ratings per game. So in 2020 on ESPN and ABC, they averaged 276,000 viewers per game when it was on national TV. Fox's viewership in 2021 was 210,000 a game, followed by Univision, who had the most out of all three networks with 284,000. In 2020, ABC and ESPN had 233,000, followed by Univision having 249,000, and Fox had 202,000. 2019 saw ABC and ESPN 246,000, Fox 229,000, Univision 240,000. 2018 ABC ESPN 241,000, Fox 296,000, Univision 282,000. And then 2017 is the last bit of data they gave, 261,000 on ABC and ESPN, Fox 236,000, and Univision 244,000. And I believe the numbers are around 294,000 on the major networks so far, and those numbers are a little bit up, right? But it's not been anything compared to maybe ESPN or hoping for, Fox or Univision or even the league in general. I mean, there's no denying that MLS is getting a lot better quality of play than what it was 5 years ago. Look, you guys, if you listen to the podcast from when I first started the podcast, I gave my story on how I got into the Philadelphia Union, how I got into MLS, followed the league in 2007 when David Beckham came over, got into soccer in 2006 after watching the England versus Portugal match in the World Cup. That's how I became a fan of Manchester United and paying attention to the Premier League. Decided to give MLS a chance in 2007 because David Beckham came over. Comparing the league play in MLS in 2007 compared to where the league was in 2007 in the Premier League, a huge difference. Could not watch MLS at all. And so decided to give MLS a go towards the end of the 2017 season. And I was so surprised with how much the league had changed. The quality of play had been so much better than what I remembered it from 2007. And yeah, the MLS was still signing older players and everything. I guess it had the whole persona of being a retirement league. But then you look, the last couple of years, MLS is really hitting the South American market. They're hitting the European market with teams in the second division or lower first league division teams in smaller European countries and bringing those players over here in America where, you know, they're not getting the looks maybe they would get because they're playing in little leagues or they're younger players, and so the game time is not really there. So they're coming over to MLS, we all know. And if they perform well, then they get eyes from bigger teams in Europe looking at them, and they'll eventually get them moved back over to Europe. And I have no problem with that with MLS. The speed of the game, the quality of the plays, it's just so much better. And we do deal with a lot of Euro snobbery in America where people say they like soccer, but they won't watch MLS at all because, it's the same thing I went through in 2007 where the quality was night and day different from Premier League to MLS. But my argument is, the Premier League, I feel like, I don't feel like, I know. Like the Premier League, you know what teams are going to win. You know Manchester City, Liverpool, week in, week out, they're going to win. It doesn't matter who they play against. Where in MLS, who expected Cincinnati to win last week in Orlando? I didn't. Who expected Cincinnati to get a win this week? Their second win, I believe, ever at home. I didn't. And so it's no guaranteed that, teams on the road are just automatically going to lay down and lose. Where in the Premier League, it seems like the bigger clubs just roll over these smaller teams. And you don't get that in MLS. And I think because of that, it makes MLS that much more exciting because you never know what is going to happen. Are the players better than the players in the Premier League? No, I would argue some of the players are better than the lower level players in the Premier League, but as a whole, no, the quality of play is, of course, better in the Premier League, in my opinion. But yeah, MLS is a lot better than what it was 5 years ago, 6 years ago, like I said, 10 years ago for sure. And so I don't know. I don't know what the league's going to do with drawing more people interested into the league. Do you have to, at a minimum salary that teams have to spend, a maximum salary cap, up the salary cap, a fourth DP? Do you have to get a Messi into the league or Ronaldo to draw interest in the league? I don't know. The quality is not bad, but to get 300 million like MLS was hoping for, it's not going to happen. And MLS wanted next year's TV rights deal wrapped up by the end of March, and there's no way Turner is going to get that done because they're going through the merger with Discovery. So it'll be interesting. The rumors are that the rights are going to go back to ESPN and Univision, which I've no problem with that since I already pay for ESPN. So if I don't have to pay for another streaming service, I'm extremely happy with that. But that is the latest with the MLS TV rights, and we'll see what happens. But moving on, Toronto FC, they have announced that they have traded defender Kemar Lawrence to Minnesota United in exchange for the rights to defender Sean O'Haron and a conditional $50,000 in game in either 2022 or 2023 if certain performance metrics are met. Now, Minnesota, they've struggled with, honestly, not even just the left backs, but the right backs as well. That's been an area of concern for Minnesota United, and you guys, a couple episodes ago, you guys heard Kendra D. St. Albin, Minnesota play-by-play voice, come on the podcast and say, if there's one area of the team that she wants to see Minnesota upgrade, that's the fullbacks. And they go out and get Kemar Lawrence. He's an MLS veteran with Toronto, 29 years old, Jamaican international. He's a good player. I don't know if he'll really move the needle that much for Minnesota United, but I do think it is an upgrade over the left backs that they do have. So we shall see how much of a difference Kemar makes for Minnesota United. But, for Minnesota United fans out there that wanted a new fullback, they get one in Kemar Lawrence. Moving on, it is official now that New York City Football Club have announced the signing of forward Gabriel Pereira from Brazilian side Corinthians on a contract through the 2026 season with an option for the 2027 season. They finally get the right winger that they've so desperately needed in this whole season. He can also play as an attacking midfielder. So I talked about this last week, and there's not much more for me to say. Young player, 20 years old, coming from Brazil. New York City, this is their fourth Brazilian player they've signed in the last year. They're hitting that South American market, that Brazilian market, the best out of all teams in MLS. They're scouting quality players, and if they play well, then they'll get transferred to Europe. Will they get transferred to Manchester City? I don't know. That's a stretch for me. I know reports out of Brazil were saying that Gabriel has enough talent to play for Manchester City, but I don't know. We shall see. So that is official. And the last thing I want to talk about is Stephen Goff of the Washington Post. A couple of days ago, there was reports coming out of Austria that DC United and Rapid Vienna have reached a deal for Taxiarchis Fountas, the striker, which Union fans during the offseason were saying, oh, the Union should go and look at this guy. Well, Taxi was supposed to join DC United in the summer on a free, but he is now coming to join DC United right now because DC United are desperate for strikers. They spent $400,000 to get him instead of waiting till the summertime where they could have gotten him on free. And so Steven says that he's awaiting his physical and visa, and he's saying that his visa will take 3 weeks. And look, I know Philadelphia Union fans were complaining about, oh, it's only us that are having to deal with visa issues with Mikel Ua. But it's not just us. And DC United fans are going to complain about having to wait 3 weeks for Taxi, how they want him there now, how other teams have complained about, having to wait so long for their players to get visas to come into the country. So no, Union fans, it's not just the Philadelphia Union dealing with visa issues. But that's everything I want to talk about in regards to the news. So let's go ahead and talk about yesterday's New York City game versus the Philadelphia Union. And just, wow, what a game from the Union yesterday as they go into Yankee Stadium and beat New York City for the first time ever. Just like I said in the intro, I mean, don't sleep on that. The first time ever. And Jim Curtin said, yeah, it's way too long. Like, it sucks that we had to wait this long to get our first ever win. But the Union, they get the first win. And I believe on the New York City broadcast, they said that this was only the 7th time that New York City have lost at Yankee Stadium. And it feels good. It feels good to finally beat New York City and Yankee Stadium and that terrible pitch on that small field to see the Philadelphia Union just dominate. I mean, I know, possession sucks. Yeah, the Philadelphia Union, they dominated. They dominated this game for sure. And they looked really, really good in this game. And look, I don't know about you guys, but I wasn't feeling great about this game. I thought the Union would probably lose this game because of their history in the stadium, which hasn't been great. But they found a way to win this game. And, the little details with the throw-ins and the set pieces, they really matter. And they really played a huge part for the Philadelphia Union in this game against New York City. The Union are off to their best start in MLS history. They continue that hot start. And who would have expected 2 road games, 2 road wins? Especially when you look at last season league play, the Union only had 3 wins all year on the road. The Union weren't terrible on the road last season, where they had 3 wins, like I said. They had 8 draws on the road last year, which isn't terrible. But this year, and I know it's only 2 games on the road so far, but they're finding ways to keep a hold of the lead. Unlike last season where Chicago, that's a huge game, where the Union had the lead in that game, and that game winds up in a draw, 3-3. The Union should have never have drawn against Chicago in that game. I believe they had the lead twice in the game, and they only come away with a point. But the Philadelphia Union were down against Montreal 1-0, find a way to score 2 goals, hold on to the lead being a man down, go into New York City, score the first goal in their 12th minute, I believe it was, and score a second goal. The Union could have had multiple goals in this game, and you don't want to overhype what they are doing so far because it's only been 4 games. But you got to be happy with what you've seen so far. 3-game winning streak, Daniel Gazdag, 3 straight games with a goal, back-to-back clean sheets. The set piece defending and deliveries have been excellent so far this season. Can the Union keep this form up? I don't know, but you couldn't have asked for a better start. And look, the Union, they're winning games, scoring goals without their highest paid player in Mikel Ua. And imagine how many more goals and assists this team would have if he was here. The Union have the highest XG out of all teams in MLS with 7.8, and they have the 3rd highest XG per 90 minutes with 1.94. The only 2 teams that are higher than them are, number 1, the New York Red Bulls, who would have expected the New York Red Bulls to play as well as they've played so far this season, and then the Columbus Crew. And the Union, you go ahead and look at and their expected XG against, they have the 7th lowest in MLS with 3.1. The Union are just defending so well. They're so well organized. They're creating a ton of chances. And speaking of stats, Opta put out a stat yesterday that the Union have gone over 4,000 minutes of MLS play, including playoffs, without allowing a goal from outside the box, dating back to November of 2020. That is a huge credit to Phil Wedden, the goalkeeper coach for the Union. I mean, what he's been able to do with the goalkeepers here in Philadelphia. And, I released an episode a couple months or so ago breaking down Andre's numbers since Phil has taken over the goalkeeping coaching job. But, this is huge to Jim Curtin, to Ernst Tenner for picking the right people for the coaching staff. And yesterday I asked Jim about what Frank Leicht has meant to the team on set pieces since joining the club last year. And Jim Curtin gave an outstanding response to that. And this is what he had to say to my question.
Yeah, look, Frank does a great job. We led it, for those that don't know, we led MLS in goals scored off of restarts last year. So number one in the league defensively after a tough early couple games. Frank was smart enough to adjust and play a version of a zone and man marking, so a hybrid, and it's changed our fortune on defending set pieces as well. So he's a great coach. He's a top coach. He knows the Red Bull philosophy. He comes from that philosophy. So he's been great with our young players. He's been great with our team. And obviously on the set piece side of things, he has us at the top of the league. So I give ownership to him on that. He gets all the credit. He's done a great job, and I'm really happy for Frank. Again, we want our coaches, not just our players, but also our coaches, to grow and get better and better. And I was just as happy today. I shouldn't say just as happy. I was happy today to see Cincinnati also win, and Pat get a big, huge win, and Chris Albright and those guys having success there. So that means a lot. We want our coaches to grow and reach their maximum, but Frank's certainly done a great job, as has Phil Wedden, with our goalkeepers and with our team and our field players, just teaching them, and Ryan Richter's blended in nicely. So we have a good group good group together. We're going to challenge each other. We know this is only 4 games into the season, but it's a good start. And today was easily the biggest win against the best team that our league has.
And Jim deserves just as much credit getting these coaches in here that are going to make each other better, going to make the team better. And we've seen that the last few seasons with both Phil and Frank. And it led to Pat Noonan getting a head coaching job with Cincinnati. And we'll keep paying attention to the job that Ryan Richter is doing. Such a young coach to come through the Union's academy and to take over for Pat Noonan. I think, that's something that Union fans can't sleep on. And I think that speaks such highly of what kind of character Ryan Richter is, where I remember in the offseason, Jim Curtin said him and Ernst Tenner were interviewing coaches from overseas. They were interviewing coaches within MLS, interviewing coaches within their own team. And Ryan Richter beat out all those people. And so what does that tell you about Ryan Richter? What kind of coach he is? That's a huge credit to him. Again, like I said, huge credit to Jim Curtin and Ernst Tenner just for getting the right staff in here to make not only each other better, but to make this team better. You go ahead and look. Kai Wagner was just excellent on set pieces all of yesterday with 5 key passes, 4 to 7 on crosses. Julian could have had a goal on a header yesterday. Sergio had one, but was ruled off sides before the half. Daniel Gazdag hit the post, and I believe he was also ruled offside. But yeah, the Union got dominated on possession, but possession doesn't mean anything if you're not doing anything with the ball. And Jim Curtin echoed that again yesterday. And this team is built to hit you on the counterattack, executing set pieces, both defending and attacking, and being very well organized, not even just in the back, but the whole team. And I know I've talked about it a bunch already today, but these coaches look at every single detail and they get the players ready for it all. And maybe you guys are annoyed with me talking about the coaching staff, but it matters just as much as it matters picking the right players for this system. I mean, it blows me away just to see how good each and every single one of these guys are at their job. How much they have taken players to a higher level. Look, the Philadelphia Union brought in the throwing coach that has worked with Liverpool for a week in the offseason down in Florida. And you look yesterday against New York City. Kai Wagner had a huge throw-in to Sergio Santos, and we'll break down those goals and everything. Nate Harriel had a ton of deliveries into the box with a throw-in, and the New York City commentators were like blown away with how far he could throw that ball. And it's the little things, and Jim Curtin talks about it. You got to find ways to be ahead of the curve. You got to find anything that gives you the edge over teams. And bringing in a throwing coach, if that helps, then great. If hiring a set-piece coach helps, then you do it. And we've seen both of those things give the Union a huge advantage the last couple of seasons. And, I also thought it was interesting, too, after the game that Ale Bedoya was asked about slowing down, about fans thinking he might be done this season. And just like Jim Curtin, Ale gave a wonderful response to that question, and this is what he had to say.
I feel great. Well, people keep talking about age. Age is just a number, though. I mean, there's plenty of professionals out there who define age. Everybody's body's just different. They don't know about the work I put in. My wife's a physio. I got that benefit, So I'm just keep putting in the work, man. I don't care what people say or what people, even people in my own club, kind of sometimes doubt me. And it's been like that throughout my career. I've always been kind of second guessed or underrated or whatever you want to call it. I'm just going to keep doing my thing, be in the grind, and I think put in the work. So I've set certain goals for this year, and just going to keep working like I've always done throughout my career, and keep proving me and my family right, and the others just can keep talking.
And look, I know there's been a debate on social media for, I feel like, the last year. Who's the next player to go into the Ring of Honor for the Union? Some people have said Ali's deserving. Some people have said he isn't. But there's no question in my mind that Ali is the next player to go into the Ring of Honor. He's right. He's underappreciated. And I think even our fans underappreciate him at times, where people have questioned, okay, he's done. There's no way that he's going to be starting next year. And here he is again, starting. He joined the club at a time where the Union, you saw some promise, and then you're like, oh, it's the same old Philadelphia Union, where they blow leads, they blow games, and just don't look good. He joined in the summer of 2016, I believe it was, and I don't think we realized what kind of player we were getting. We knew we were signing a U.S. men's national team player. We knew that he was a good player. Is he a superstar? By no means, no, but to see what he's done since he's been here, he's changed the whole trajectory of this club. He's been everything and then some as a leader that we could have ever wanted. And you look at the national team right now, they kind of miss a player like Ale Bedoya with his leadership, with his hustle, with his grit on the field. I am happy that he's retired from international duty because we don't have to worry about him getting hurt, because we do tend to play him a lot, where there's moments in the games where we're like, all right, he's gassed, let's take him out. But, he's the kind of guy who wants to go all 90 minutes. It's how he's built. And it's going to be hard, in my opinion, to replace Ale Bedoya once he retires from the game. And look, you even look the last couple seasons where there's rumors when Miami were coming to MLS that, oh, well, they trade for Ale Bedoya to bring him down to Miami. And he's still here at the club. And I would not be against the Union giving him a year plus an option contract extension. He's going to be 35 in April. But the way he's playing, the way he reads the game, I mean, I've been so impressed with him. And yeah, there is moments where I feel like he needs to come out of the game before he actually comes out of the game, because you're like, yeah, he looks way too gassed. But it's a credit to the way that he takes care of his body. And I feel like the last couple of years he's been getting better and better, and he's finding himself in good scoring positions. 2 goals this season, and I'm just very grateful that Ale Bedoya is the captain for this team. He's the leader that this team needs, and the way that he mentors the younger players coming from Europe, the guys that have never been to America before. I mean, is there anybody better on this team than Ale Bedoya than being a leader? We definitely have leaders on this team, but are they Ale Bedoyas? I don't know. I mean, what a guy, and what a great response to kind of shut up the haters that said, yeah, Ale is finished, and hopefully he continues to find form just like the rest of the team. But let's go ahead and talk about the 3 players of the game for me. Number 1, I think, was Nate Harriel. 4 recoveries, 1 assist, 1 block shot, 5 interceptions, 2 tackles, 2 out of 3 aerials, 1 goal line clearance. And Jim Curtin was, again, just, I feel like the last couple of weeks we've asked him about Nate Harriel. And again, he was asked this week, and this is what he had to say about Nate.
Yeah, look, that's 3 great games in a row for Nathan. And look, when Nathan first came to us, it needs to be said, he's only been with us for a pretty short time. He's still a very young defender. But the one thing that I love about him is how brave he is. He always defends forward, and he does it in an aggressive way. And more times than not, when you're aggressive and proactive, rather than reactive as a defender, you come out on top on a lot of duels. And so if you look at now, when they tried to overload his side, because he is still a young defender, any good team's going to go at him. He wins all his aerial duels. He wins his 1v1s. He does a good job with Ali communicating in front of him, of dealing with overlaps, blocking crosses. So great game for Nathan. And then also the thing that he's probably improved the most over the past 6 months is his ability to join the attack. And he's so fast with the ball that I think he doesn't recognize. Sometimes if you just push a ball by a guy, he can get away and get across like he did today to set up a goal as well. So I think there's even another level he can go to in the attacking third. But he's a defender first and foremost, and he's a damn good one.
So how much longer do we have to wait until Nate starts getting called up to the national team? I mean, it's his right back spot now to lose, right? I think we're all in agreement that Visor's going to have to find another level to beat Nate out for that spot. And, competition's good, Ali talked about too in the press conference, which I didn't play the clip, but that's what's going to make this team better, is having players in each position pushing each other to the next level, to the next step. And we all know how well Nate is defensively. That's why I think a lot of fans wanted him in instead of Bizo, because I think we can all agree that Bizo is a better attacker going forward. But if Nate can continue to get as good as he's been the last 2 games in the attack, now we're going to be talking about, okay, how much longer is Nate going to be at the club? Because clubs in Europe are going to want to sign him, especially a fullback that defends first, attacks second. Because you look in Europe, it's the fullbacks always attack first, defend second. And that's exactly what Bizo is. And I think eventually Bizo could get sold to some team in Europe because of what he offers offensively. But wow, that have a fullback that defends first and attacks second, you don't have many of those. And the better and better Nate gets, the more games he plays, man, like, this guy could theoretically put up a chance for Union MVP. I know we're only 4 games in, but the way he's been playing ever since he got that starting spot, he's putting up MVP type numbers, in my opinion. Number 2, I thought Kai Wagner. 1 block shot, 1 interception, 2 tackles, 2 out of 4 ground duels, 4 key passes. Could have had a ton of assists. We talked about his delivery earlier. There's not much more to say about Kai Wagner. And then number 3, Daniel Gazdag. Look, his goal was great, but for me, it's his movement off the ball. Finding the space that he finds is what you want for in a 10. And I'll talk about it here in a second when I break down the goal. But he did an outstanding job finding the space to get his goal, to run off of 2 defenders. The work he's doing to attack the ball when he's pressing, being the point of the attack, it's been really outstanding. And seeing this guy actually get rest, come up, and be rejuvenated this season, Gazdag for MVP, anyone? Let's go ahead and talk about these goals, breaking down these goals. So, the first goal that the Union score was through Ale Bedoya on a set piece, Kai Wagner with the delivery. And this is why I wanted to ask Jim Curtin about Frank Leicht, because this was a really, really interesting set piece. They sent Jacob Glesnes out wide, far right. Nobody's marking him. Jack Elliott's like moving from left to right multiple times. Nobody in New York City is really sure who to pick up here. They're not playing a man marking. They're playing a zonal defensive high line. And one, playing this high line definitely cost them on this goal. Two, because of the movement by Jack Elliott, it really threw everything off here for New York City. Kai Wagner plays a great ball in the middle of the penalty spot. Julian Carranza beats Keaton Parks, it looks like. Gets a great touch on the ball to Ale Bedoya. Ale Bedoya, Jason had himself a terrible game for New York City. Jason, I think, was supposed to have that zone for New York City. Completely just leaves that zone. And Ale Bedoya is able to just run free and tap the ball in the back of the net. Great touch by Julian Carranza. Yeah, he doesn't have the goals that Union fans might want so far this season, but I believe that's 2 assists now for Carranza. And just his movement in the box, his touch is something we've been asking for the last couple of seasons. An outstanding touch to know exactly where Ali was going to be. And Ali's able to slot the ball to Sean Johnson's left. And there's nothing Sean Johnson could have done here because there's a great finish by Ali to pick his corner. Terrible defending by New York City. Why you would play a high line, I have no idea. This was a clever set piece that Frank Leicht had the Union practice in training, I'm sure, this week. But I'm just like, okay, you're going to play zonal marking, and you completely ignore the area of the field you're supposed to mark. And then you play a high line, and you get beat easily. And yeah, this was not the way that New York City had this plan, I'm sure. You saw them if you watched them against Comunicaciones in the Champions League. And they scored a couple of set-piece goals on New York City. And the Union scored the first goal of the day on a set-piece goal. The second goal the Union get here is a terrible throw-in here from Jason to Keaton Parks. Takes a terrible touch, kicks the ball straight out of play, which then the ball goes for a Union throw-in. Santi Rodriguez is having a go, I think, at either Jason or Keaton Parks, saying, yeah, you should have played that ball a lot better. So Kai Wagner is going to line up here for a big throw-in into Sergio Santos, who does very, very well to have a flick on off of Alfredo Morales. Julian Carranza is then able to run onto the loose ball. The Union are going from left to right. Ale Bedoya is running towards the right side of the 18-yard box, wide open. Plays a good ball, Carranza to Bedoya. Now, Bedoya sees Nate Harriel on the overlap, and he's able to just slot the ball right to Nate Harriel. Nate Harriel, as soon as he gets into the 18-yard box, he hits him with pace, hits this ball across the 18-yard box with pace. Daniel Gazag's easily getting the second goal, has an easy tap in. Because when you go back to the throw-in, and I posted a breakdown of this on Twitter at Free Kick Pod. Initially, Jason, the right back for New York City, is marking Daniel Gazdag. And as soon as the ball gets thrown into play here, Jason leaves Daniel Gazdag, is paying attention to the ball. Keaton Parks then is supposed to pick up Daniel Gazdag, but he's not aware that Daniel Gazag's behind him. He's chasing the ball, watching the ball. So Daniel Gazdag notices that. And he's now going to run off of Keaton Park's back towards the back post, because you have all the players from New York City chasing the ball, watching the ball go from Carranza to Ale Bedoya. And Jason, because of that, is unaware that Daniel Gazdag is making the run off of Keaton Parks now onto Jason's back. Jason doesn't even have a quick look over. He's completely unaware that Daniel Gazdag is right behind him, making that run towards the far post. And as soon as Ali slots the ball to Nate Harriel, Daniel Gazdag notices that Nate's in a ton of space, makes the run off of Jason's back, and by the time that Nate plays the ball across the box, there's nothing that Jason can do to keep up to Daniel Gazdag. He's able to put it in the back of the net. Easy tap and goal for Daniel Gazdag, and that's exactly what I said. Just Daniel Gazdag's run into space off of players was fantastic, has been fantastic this season. This is the reason why he has 3 goals this season in 3 straight games for the Union. And hopefully more people in MLS start to pay attention to what Daniel Gazdag's doing. And it is funny that Matt Doyle said that he didn't think that Daniel Gazdag was all that. Thought that Paxton Aronson would take the starting spot from Daniel Gazdag. And the way that he's been playing, there's no way that's happening. So just 2 goals that the Union scored off of the little details, a throw-in and a set-piece goal. So fantastic job by the coaching staff, by the players to execute those plays. And let's go ahead and talk about Blunder of the Week. So Blunder of the Week, like I said earlier, I thought about giving it to myself for always teasing who's going to come onto the podcast, and every time I do that, it never happens. And then I thought about giving MLS Blunder of the Week because they got rid of stats that I've been tracking the last couple of years. I don't know why MLS aren't tracking their stats now. So I'm having to go ahead and manually look for these stats, watch every game's highlights, and track these stats myself, which is no big deal and everything. But I just don't know why MLS stopped tracking these stats because they're really, really useful stats. So I thought about giving MLS a stat, but then I saw what happened in last night's Real Salt Lake game versus Nashville. And this was in the 95th minute. Real Salt Lake are up 2-1 against Nashville. A young striker for Real Salt Lake, Bodie Davis, takes the ball to the corner flag. He's holding it up, gets fouled in the process by Dax McCarty, and I'm not sure who the other player is for Nashville. So Brody gets fouled, and Dax McCarty's standing over Bodie, and the ball's in between Davis's chest. And at first, it looked like Dax McCarty stomped on Davis, but that didn't happen. He goes ahead and backheels, it looked like. Not looked like, he definitely backheeled Davies in the stomach. And that's just totally unacceptable. Why you would go ahead and backheel a player that's on the ground. I get it. You want to get the ball and everything. You're down a goal. But to violently attack somebody like that, I mean, that's unacceptable. And he got a red card because of it. But I'm hoping he misses at least 2 to 3 games because that's unacceptable. And to see Dax McCarty lose his cool that easily, especially being the captain of Nashville, that's the last person on the field you want to see losing their cool is your captain. And to see him just backheel Davis with all of his force, that's just unbelievable, and that gets Blunder of the Week for me. So if you guys still aren't following the podcast, I saw a lot of people this weekend started following the podcast on Twitter, so hopefully you guys are listening to the podcast now. Welcome. But if you guys still aren't following the podcast on Instagram, Facebook, or Twitter, follow @FreeKickPod, wherever you get your podcasts, The Free Kick. And I know I didn't talk about it earlier. The Philadelphia Union have signed Jose Villasco. I'll be releasing a podcast episode in the next couple of days talking about that signing, about what the Union can expect, and just all that good information that really isn't out there about Jose. So really looking forward to recording that episode and getting that out there for you guys. But yeah, like I said earlier, hopefully you guys are enjoying your weekend. Hopefully you guys have a great week. And yeah, it sucks we have to wait 2 weeks for Union soccer. But look, I'm happy. It's one thing where if the Union were off to a terrible start and we could have said, oh, thank goodness for this break. But because the Union are off to such a high-flying start, we're like, we want to see these guys every single week. So hopefully you guys have a great week. Hopefully the weather stays good. Get some fresh air. And until then, my name is Todd, and this is the Free Kick Podcast.